This debate that I listened to that it always stuck with me for years. It was with a guy named Dyer and that same guy, Matt Dillahunty, and they were debating. And
Oh, here it is.
Oh, sorry. I thought
Oh, no
Go ahead. They
problem.
were debating.
Yeah, they were debating. And he said, the guy Dillahunty said, well, I'm a skeptic. And Jay said, no, you're not. Here's the actual philosophy of skepticism, and it always starts with you.
We got a shout out today on Joe Rogan again. This is, I think, the third. It's about the third Joe Rogan shout out we got. So thanks to Andrew. And Andrew keeps his word. People get mad at people, don't like people that, a lot of it's just internet anger, irrational anger. In my experience, Rachel and Andrew have always been honest and kept their word. I've never seen them do anything negative, never seen them do any backstabbing to me. So, and Andrew had said at DebateCon, he's like, I'm going to mention you on Rogan. And so, let's see, I think it comes up here. Let's do that first.
The reason is because you're a good debater, and you've gotten better as time has gone on. And if you're going to represent your view, I want you to be the best at representing that view, because that's how you determine which worldview people end up going with. This is why so many people have moved towards Christianity and Christian ethics. Seeing the religious debates has a lot to do with that, with the various ideas in worldview being expanded, and then the kind of the graciousness even after the debate of trying to help the other person with their view.
That's very cool, and that would be nice if most people used that framework to have discussions.
They don't.
They don't. No, they don't. It's just, and again, it's like, it's a part of what we were talking about, that there's this whole commodity of attention, and there's a lot of attention on dunking on people and shitting on people and being mean, and people love that stuff for whatever reason.
That's true. Now, I'm not always that charitable when it comes to progressives or leftists, the people who I consider responsible for many of the most horrific things in society socially that we deal with. I'm not nearly as charitable to them. But this is because in my humble experience, they have not been very charitable to anybody.
No.
And this is true. I mean, the number one enemy of civilization is the left and leftism and secularism, all of that. That's the number one, destroyer of the West. Obviously, there's other forces as well. I'm not saying it's just that, but I'm just saying in terms of dominant ideological destruction, the ideology is leftism and all of its tentacles that come out of it like an octopus.
Anybody's views.
It's a very hyper-aggressive position, and very prone to insult.
By the way, this is the thing. People think leftism is tolerance and we're all cool, bro. No, it's aggressive activism, subversion, destroy civilization, destroy people's families. That's what it really is.
And that it's normalized.
Destroy the church, etc.
Like attacking people's normalized. The celebration of Charlie Kirk is a great example of like the cruelty.
And remember when this happened, how many people all over the place, even in the Orthodox Church, even in Christianity, they all showed their true colors because they were celebrating that Charlie Kirk just because he represented like normie conservatism. Like he wasn't some hardcore far right dude, but they're so insane that even normie Charlie Kirk, basic, family value stuff is like, has to be attacked because they're in a death cult and they're motivated by a death cult spirit.
It's normalized, right?
And when you get down to the core pillar of their ideology, a lot of them think, not only is this justified, I'll give you an example. There's a guy who was inside the Twitch sphere who says, well, wouldn't you kill Hitler if you could before he became Hitler? That's his justification.
Right.
And so you see many progressives who have this kind of justification, and that leads to a huge amount of political violence, which becomes normalized because they justify it through the lens of, I'm stopping a monster.
Right.
I've never.
Yeah, and this is a thing we've called attention to in many live streams, which is that the left are not actually virtuous because they don't believe in virtue, right? They just believe in power dynamics. They don't believe in good and bad. They believe in power, and oppressor and oppressed. And so in their mindset, any action they take to take down oppressors is justified. But actually what's going on is they are vicious, narcissistic, evil people who will use the justification that I'm taking down the next tiny mustache man therefore I am therefore justified in anything I can do, anything I do, right? It's a criminal tactic. You'll notice criminals, for example, when you listen to people who are serial killers or they're murderers and they're interviewed in prison. Have you ever noticed that none of them are guilty? I mean, sometimes they'll say, yeah, I read the Bible and I converted in prison or whatever. But like 99.9% of criminals are like, man, I didn't do nothing. No, it was not my fault. I didn't do it. It's not my fault. Man, I had a hard upbringing, right? So the hard upbringing is somehow a justification for, well, it's not my fault that I murdered everybody, right? I had a hard upbringing. So everything becomes a justification for obviously wicked actions. And the entire ethos of the left is predicated on that same idea that the ends justify the means. You can justify anything that you're doing by, well, but they're evil to me, and so I'm justified.
Never thought these people see me as a human being. I don't think that they do. I think that they see me, most of them, at least the ones I debate with, as an actual monster who's trying to take from, or destroy them or hurt them in some way. And so
that is true, and that's why the left is not about actual debate. It's very similar to Islam. Islam has a pretense of wanting to be about debate, but if you go back to the early Salafi, they said logic is haram. Well, you can't have debate without logic. So it's actually a death cult, just like the left is a death cult. That's why you find that alliance that's very easy between Islam and the left, is because they don't value debate. They don't value objective truth and, virtue ethics and coming to some resolution based on what's true versus what's false. It's all for them power dynamics, which is exactly the way Muslims, for example, see debate. They don't care about what's true and false. It's who's got the own. And then if they lose the debate, well, then you're going to be doxxed. That's the next step, right?
From my view, that's what it always seems like coming this direction, is that they don't even see me as a person. They see me as like an idea or an ideology, which is there to hurt them.
Right, that they have to attack and beat and win.
Right.
And then, of course, they're in the echo chamber of the people that also support that ideology, and they're all like agreeing that this is okay and that this is acceptable and this violence is acceptable and all these different things. Yeah, it's really, it's kind of daunting, because you're just like, when does this dust settle? When do people just like relax and start having actual conversations on both sides? Like when do people just do what you and Dave did and just find out why a person thinks what they think and what the actual facts of what they're saying are, and whether or not your worldview is distorted
or compatible.
You know,
like Christian ethics living inside of libertarianism, from my view, is way better than trying to make Christian ethics compatible with progressive ideology.
Right.
And so if I have to pick between a guy governing like Mamdani or a guy who holds the ideology like Dave Smith, I'm picking Dave Smith's ideology.
Yeah.
And those are the choices. That's how I view it. I view it as choices between ideologies. Somebody's going to be in charge. Somebody's going to be in charge of the state, no matter what.
Yeah.
I'm going to try to pick the ideology that's closest to my own. If you're going to be in charge of the state, I definitely want you to at least be representing the values that I have. Being injected in your body absent your
Kill the infidels. That seems a little
salvation.
like, especially
To inject the jabby
They were talking about Islam here.
stabby into you. YouTube even censored opposition to it for a long time.
I think there's a real problem with people that don't have an ethical framework or a moral framework that's just arbitrary, and they don't have a religious background.
Foundation.
Yeah, that's where I always describe it as like, whether you believe in Christ or not, it's an awesome framework, like a scaffolding for being a good person. You could follow that guy's teachings. Like, there's no flaws in it. Like, especially Jesus. Like, there's not one thing that you point to. Like, there's a few guys in religion that you could point to and go, yeah, well, he married a 9-year-old. Like, hey, that seems a little fucked. Hey, he said he could kill the infidels. That seems a little fucked. Mm-hmm. With Jesus, there's none of that.
None of that. Not only that, it's interesting that you bring that up, the kind of foundational principles. For Christians, the emulation of Christ, we accept that we're flawed. We accept that we sin. And we accept that the only pathway for us to redemption is to follow the teachings of Jesus Christ through Christian ethics, right? That's how we perceive things. So baked into that is not only redemption, it's not only the idea of salvation, but it gives you a value to move towards.
Yeah.
And what's missing often from the progressive ideology, from the secular ideology or the atheist ideology, how do you give a person a moral ought if you are the ultimate arbiter of all that is moral, because it just comes down to your preference?
Right.
How do we determine who the ultimate arbiter now is?
Right.
Oh, this is really, really good. I know for this audience, this is a lot of the basics that are kind of, second nature for us, but this is really good for this audience to hear these kinds of very fundamental worldview level critiques. And I would like to add on this point of oughts. If you remember in the debate with Dinesh, some people even thought that Dinesh had scored an own towards the end when the topic of David Hume came up, and Dinesh said, Hume conceded that you can get an ought from an is because contained within the idea of a calculator is that it functions to calculate, or within the idea of a keyboard is that it functions to write things. David Hume never conceded any such thing. Like, what is he talking about? In fact, he actually made the argument, Dinesh did, that that's part of telos or purpose. David Hume questioned the idea of telos. That's why he said the teleological argument's no good. So I just want to point out that even towards the end, the only thing that anybody even considered as a possible one-up or own or whatever in the Andrew Dinesh debate, that was actually not true. Dinesh was actually wrong. He didn't even get that part right. So, but that's relevant here because he's talking about worldviews and paradigms and ethics.
Right.
Well, it usually
And the idea that you can get an ought from an is, no, you can't. If you have that worldview, if you're an atheist, a skeptic, agnostic, in that worldview, there's no logical connection between what something is to what it ought to be or ought to be used for or what it ought to do. Because there's no telos, there's no causality, and there's no ethics in that view that are objective.
comes down to you and whatever your preferences are. And so what are we moving towards exactly? How do we make the determination that you're in error? You're not moving towards this greater value.
What you do is you're establishing a new non-defined religion that could be moved and changed based on
the whims.
At any given time. And depending on who's the most radical and the most charismatic that's in charge of whatever that.
Yeah, it just follows random sort of subjective preferences. Now, people were saying that Andrew brings up the Matt Dillahunty debate. And yes, people were saying, if you look at the comments, which is humbling. I didn't ask anybody to do this, but there are many, many, many comments saying, "Where's Jay Dyer? When's Jay? We want Jay Dyer on. Jay Dyer. Jay." There's probably several hundred comments now. So there's 6,000 comments. That's crazy, and quite a few of them, a few hundred, are asking for, "Hey, let's." Hey, it'd be great. I'm looking forward to that opportunity. Should it present itself? I don't know if I'll ever get on Joe Rogan, but it would be really awesome to be on there. I would love to. I think, Andrew's mentioning it, Rachel mentioning it, Sam Tripoli. You guys remember Sam Tripoli was the first to bring it up last year on Rogan. So props to all those guys for the name drops. I appreciate that. And but I was wondering where at some point, I don't know the timestamp though, because this just popped off today. So if you guys don't know, it just came out. Do you guys know when he mentions me and Matt Dillahunty debate? I saw it was like 2 hours in somewhere. Does anybody know exactly when it is? If you know the timestamp, let me know in the chat and I'll pull it up. But since this just dropped and we played about 10 minutes there, we did a 10-minute segment there about their talk about leftism. I'll probably wait till some more of the clips drop to get into more, because they don't even have it divided in terms of segments yet, I don't think. My allergies are going crazy. Does anybody know the timestamp? If you do, put it in the chat and I'll pull it up. Use the AI. Okay. Now, I heard they had some back and forth about Candace too, which I'd like to see that discussion. So 244, let's see.
People that light themselves on fire.
These are people who are in the church who are specially selected to basically emulate. They set themselves on fire with the holy flame from torches. And apparently, this is what I'm told, they've had people go and investigate, and they can't figure out how exactly this is being done, but they're completely on fire and they don't get hurt at all.
Jamie, pull that up.
I have.
Is there video of that?
There is
before
video.
I get there,
Really?
demonstration
Yeah.
of
Oh, they got into the holy fire? I didn't know that. That's crazy.
Greek television.
Of them,
dipped
like,
5 candles in white phosphorus. The candles spontaneously ignited for approximately 10 minutes due to the self-ignition properties of white phosphorus when in contact with the air. According to the website, it says that phosphorus is dissolved in an appropriate organic solvent. Self-ignition is delayed.
This is interesting timing too, because did you guys see that Cameron, Cucking Christianity, Cameron Bertuzzi tried to call the Orthodox out over the holy fire? I mean, dude, I don't think, if you want to say the holy fire is a fake miracle, I don't think you want to go that route as a Roman Catholic, dude. Like that's gonna quadruple turn on your own head, you goober.
Until the solvent is completely evaporated. Repeated experiments show the ignition can be delayed for half an hour or more, depending on the density of the solution.
How does it stop them from catching fire, though, and dying?
The same way, it's probably like the you know, the shit that people put on to make movies, you know?
He's a skeptic. This motherfucker, he's always ruining everything with all this logic.
I think that skepticism is great if people actually practice the real philosophical tradition of skepticism, which is you're supposed to also be skeptical of your view.
Right.
So the real skeptics, I'll never forget.
And this is a great point. And this is also something that Dinesh didn't get in the debate. When Andrew made the ought is argument from David Hume, like Dinesh made the lowest tier stupid mistake, as if that means that Andrew is a Humean. Like, dude, I can make the argument and not be a Humean. Like, I don't have to believe in skepticism to counter your argument with a skeptical line of argumentation. This is so silly.
This debate that I listened to, that it always stuck with me for years. It was with a guy named Dyer and that same guy, Matt Dillahunty, and they were debating. And
oh, here it is.
Oh, sorry. No
Go ahead. They were debating?
Yeah, they were debating. And he said, the guy Dillahunty said, well, I'm a skeptic. And Jay said, no, you're not. Here's the actual philosophy of skepticism, and it always starts with you.
You know, that's funny. I don't even I mean, I'm not denying that or saying Andrew's wrong. I just don't even remember that. Like, I've already forgotten most of what we even talked about in the Dillahunty debate. But now that I think about it, I remember Matt, like, making some basic mistakes about like he didn't get what skepticism was, like, from the Humean perspective, even though he plays this like perpetual skeptic, right? And I do remember doing an internal critique, because I remember on one debate, I think it was the Jordan Peterson debate, right?
Exists. So when you frame it as if
Matt Dillahunty said at one point to Jordan Peterson something like, you should never believe in something that you can't verify with your five senses. And then I think that's why I bring up in the debate at some point, I'm like, you realize you can't verify that proposition with your five senses, right? Like, do you understand this cuts you, like, this undercuts your whole argument? Because eventually Matt Dillahunty, I remember this now, he says in the debate, he says, well, I do think that there are abstract invariant principles or preconditions like logic, but they just are. And that's when I said, but Matt, didn't you say that you shouldn't believe in something that you can't verify with your five senses? So how do you verify universal logical rules and laws with your five senses? And that's, I think, what Andrew's getting to, is that Matt wasn't applying his supposed skepticism to his own position in terms of an internal critique.
Your view is what you apply skepticism to first, long before you ever apply it to any other. And the problem with people who describe themselves now as skeptics, I'm a skeptic, they actually aren't really following skepticism.
Yeah, this is especially true with professional corporate skepticism. Neil deGrasse Tyson, Michael Shermer, all those 2000, 2010 era, shit lib, soyance men, the new atheist types. They're not actually skeptics, because they're not skeptical of the establishment mainstream positions. And that's exactly why their whole thing has died out. Right. And we brought this up on Tucker, right? Tucker was like, are there any of these professional atheists anymore? I mean, the reason they've died out is that it only took a matter of time before people started realizing their shtick is actually just to be dogmatic, act like they're these super sophisticated skeptics. But then when people actually come with philosophical, rigorous critique and counters, they collapse. They don't know what to do, because it was all a big front and a scam anyway.
They're skeptical of
I mean, literally half of these new atheists are flying on freaking Epstein jets. It's retarded.
That doesn't mean that they're skeptical of their own, and it's supposed to start internally. That's what made skepticism kind of something that spread widely, was that it was a way for people to reject parts of their own worldview that didn't fit, they didn't match, they weren't coherent, they didn't make much sense. And so most of the time I hear skepticism, the person's not actually following the philosophy of skepticism. They're not applying it to their view first.
Yeah, there's a lot of lazy skepticism too, where they outright deny the existence of conspiracies, like, which is just fucking ludicrous. It's like
like Neil deGrasse Tyson, the professional skeptics, Michael Shermer, Lawrence Krauss, all of that goober crowd, half of whom were hanging out with Epstein. So what does that tell you?
you're playing you're in a very rigid corridor of ideas. You're only allowed to
It's
operate
ridiculous.
inside
Not only that,
carrying around like armored satchels.
Well, yeah, you could.
A lot of people were discussing, because remember, this just came out like a few hours ago. The Candace part. Let's see when the Candace part is. Okay, so conspiracies theories about Charlie Kirk and Candace, 41 minutes in, and then the debate offer. Okay, so let's start with the 41 minutes first.
right now you have progressives who are funded by ActBlue, right? And I've proven this. We traced all their money. It's progressives funded by ActBlue who are pushing the same narrative that like Candace Owens and others are pushing on the idea of Charlie Kirk's death and the conspiracy around that. So
they're absolutely being paid to push this?
Well, their stated mission, this particular progressive group, their stated mission was to take down TPUSA. I'll tell you a story. This is the tale of all tales.
Okay.
So Charlie Kirk has this huge outreach program that's happening through TPUSA on these college campuses. He's got viral clip after viral clip after viral clip, and they are going wild. He's going campus to campus. He's doing his thing. He's being dogged by a progressive organization. This progressive organization shows up at almost all of these TPUSA events with the stated mission of trying to create a counter movement to what TPUSA is doing. Now, the woman who heads this particular organization received millions of dollars from ActBlue and other progressive organizations for this stated mission. That same woman right this second works with other X accounts to push the messaging that Charlie Kirk was assassinated by his own TPUSA insiders in order to push that narrative forward, because the stated goal still from that organization is to destroy TPUSA.
So how do we know that they've done this? Are there emails that have been found? Like
Well, the stated goal of this particular person
is to take down
TPUSA.
Right.
She's very open about that. And then the way that you know that they are talking to these other accounts is because they do it publicly. Those public accounts will talk to this account, right? Mm-hmm. Very openly. They reaffirm each other's posts. They say, wow, that's real interesting, this kind of thing. All affirming that same conspiracy that TPUSA was the ones who actually set up and murdered Charlie Kirk. And at millions of dollars in ActBlue funding going towards this. No joke. Anybody can look it up right now. The organization's called Unfuck America.
So how do they think that his organization did this? That they convinced Tyler Robinson to do it, or did they think someone else did it?
I don't think that the progressive organization does believe that TPUSA did this. I think that what they want to do
I understand that. Yeah. But I mean, what are they trying to say?
Oh, well, here's what the theory
So is this a Destiny thing? Look, is Brian Shapiro, is that who's part of this? Let's see. It is Destiny. So Unfuck America is Destiny and Brian Shapiro and all these other weirdos, which are associated with, obviously, the Democratic Party to some degree. So that's what he's referring to.
So take Ian Carroll. Within 24 hours after Kirk's death, blames Israel. Within 24 hours, he says, Israel killed Kirk. That was his tweet, went mega viral. What the conspiracy is on that side is that Israel, along with Erica Kirk and TPUSA insiders, got together with elements of the U.S. government to murder Charlie Kirk because he was going to leave the, quote, pro-Israel cause. That's what the theory is.
Right.
And that he was either murdered, some of them say with a microphone exploding, some of them say with either there was a second shooter and Robinson's a patsy. It all depends on which theorist you're talking to. But they all work together in the same unison from a single camp, which is interesting.
Well, a lot of people had takes on the shooting, and the microphone one was the weirdest one to me. It's weird because there's no, the shirt is moving, but also a bullet is going like how many feet per second, whizzing through the air? Like, do you
It splits
understand?
air.
Yeah.
So where's the air gonna go?
People don't understand that.
You know what got me though? So I
What?
went back and looked because they say that it's the same explosive which was used inside the Israeli pagers. Now that was very real. Israel sent these pagers
but that would
all over.
be an explosion. That's my take. My point is like there's no indication that there's an ignition.
It's worse. There's no smoke.
Right.
There's no now all the
Yeah.
Israeli. If you pulled up right now one of these Israeli pagers going, because there's tons of videos of them.
Oh, really? Let's
Oh,
watch.
yeah.
Let me see some Israeli
You're gonna
pagers
see smoke
blowing off.
There's smoke.
Is there a dude like where it's on his hip?
Yeah, oh yeah, yep. There's one where it's on his hip and gets him, and you can see the cloud of smoke coming off because of the specific type of ignition. From
Right,
this
but is it
explosive.
possible that this pager thing is different than whatever they think this microphone thing is? This microphone thing has some sort of a different kind of propellant.
No,
but then
they-
again, you'd have to like, okay, let's imagine what kind of propellant exists, right? Compressed air. There's not enough room
No.
in that microphone to get enough compressed air to blow a hole in your neck and kill you instantly,
Well, they claim that it's
unless it's something else.
It's this, what is it, PETN explosive. This is the particular type that had to be used for the size of the microphone. But you have another problem. The mic's on the wrong side of where the wound is.
Right.
The other is just,
I mean, I think this exploding microphone thing is so stupid. And by the way, again, remember the Candace sphere. And you guys know I have some questions, obviously, about this. I do not believe the official story. That does not mean that there's proof that BB did it. I do think it's suspicious with Harrison's tweet that Harrison has about what he was told. I do think that and I think that's a piece of evidence. I think there's motive on the part of the Middle East, so to speak. But that's different from whether there's actual proof. So the evidence for Robinson being involved seems to me to be very clear, very obvious, right? Now, whether he was a patsy or whether he was used by other outfits, to me, it seems like there was evidence suggesting that. You had the TRNZ Discord groups, people on Twitter saying that, Charlie would be gone next week, that kind of stuff. That all to me is very important pieces of evidence. You remember the Zen guy who was doing the distraction that seems to be planned, that seems to be important as well, which why would that guy be doing that if this was just the lone TRNZ guy? So there's plenty of things that might, and then you have Kash Patel and others saying, as I understand, we're not going to investigate the possibility of foreign involvement. I think those are all real things. The idea that, everything in the trial is fake and made up, that's retarded. Candace's 33 schizo gematria stuff, that's all retarded. So I can have a nuanced position and still be waiting to see what happens in the trial, which is very relevant, and be waiting to see what other evidence comes out and remembering the things that didn't line up in the past.
no burn marks. There's no smoke. There's nothing. There's nothing to confirm this theory at all.
You'd have to guess where that mic is because he's moving around too. You have to guess where that mic is pointed. You could take someone out.
So I found
on
two
the side.
videos.
This one's
is the
great.
main one that goes. I'll show you. This happens again here,
Watch the smoke.
right here.
See all that smoke?
Oh, let me see that again.
Yeah.
Watch all the
Dude's
smoke.
just chilling, and boom!
Look at all that
it blew up
smoke.
in his bag, though.
Yeah.
Yeah, so a lot of them like they didn't die. They go to the hospital and they're just like hurt.
Probably because they had it in their bag or
And I
something.
found one other video here.
Bro, these guys are gonna
I
be
think it's
carrying
this
around like
one.
armored satchels.
Well, yeah, you get like a couple of them were on bikes and stuff when it happened. Like that guy got fucked up.
Yeah, he got messed up real bad.
There's or they give you the illusion that he did by blurring out his head.
That's the other part. I mean, not that these are fake, but yes, it says only 11 were killed by the pagers.
still pretty slick.
That was extremely slick.
Extremely slick. I mean, crazy. They sent him off to them years ago.
That's some CIA shit, man. Like,
They're
that's
better.
some deep
That's
state.
Mossad
Wow.
shit.
Yeah, it's crazy.
That's probably where the
Yeah, if you read Victor Ostrovsky's book, he talks about backdoor tech via Mossad. That's old school Mossad stuff. They've been doing that kind of stuff for decades.
CIA learned it. But that's an explosion, right? And yeah, you see smoke. But is there some kind of a propellant that would be lethal from a short distance with some sort of a projectile?
It's possible.
But it would also have to be how are you aiming it? You're not even aiming it. It's sitting up here, right? So if it's sitting here and he's doing all this and moving around, it might take his ear off. It might whiz to the side and shoot somebody else if he leans over.
Sure.
And
people to debate their positions.
I now want to move over to the Candace part.
Who won't debate their positions?
Okay. We offered Candace Owens. I offered her $300,000 to do a debate. I was like, we'll give you $300,000.
What is her position? What does she think happened?
She thinks that Israel worked in conjunction with TPUSA
Well, what does she think this week? Because it's changed many, many times.
and Erica Kirk to murder Charlie.
Based on what?
Well, that's the million-dollar question. Nobody actually knows. She's never presented a single shred of evidence thus far that Israel ever worked to murder Kirk, that Erica Kirk certainly didn't. In fact, her position for the longest time was if Erica Kirk comes out and tells me to stop this, to stop the conspiracy on this, I will. So Erica did. She went out publicly and she was like, enough. You're just causing more problems than good here as this investigation's going on. And then suddenly Erica's now part of the conspiracy.
Yeah, and something I said, again, the first indicator in my view that this was not lining up in terms of Candace's presentation, if you go back, and we did live streams back at the time, so it began with Egyptian planes, right? And then there were problems in the Egyptian plane narrative as to what was going on here. Now, yes, Israel, the CIA, they have used and had roles and people planted in Egypt for many, many decades. In fact, going back to the Cold War, we've done book analysis of Miles Copeland's book. He was a CIA kind of consultant throughout the entire Nasser period in Egypt. So I'm very aware of the history of both the CIA and Mossad operations in Egypt. We talked about, I think that might have been Syria, not Egypt, but we talked about, Mossad has done famous assassinations in places like Syria and Egypt, I'm sure as well. We covered that in various books, but it began with the Egyptian planes thing, and that didn't really go anywhere. It was just kind of left kind of up in the air as to where Candace was going with that. And then it turned into Mitch Snow, right? Then it was, no, I'm sorry, I can't forget the beekeepers and the orange outfits, whatever that's supposed to mean. Some sort of code of a beekeeper cult of people wearing purple and bees or something. Then it was, I can't remember if it went to Mossad next or did it go to tunnels. She went with tunnels for a while, and then it turned into Mitch Snow, and she hinged huge amounts of credibility on Mitch Snow. And I started watching Mitch Snow's videos and stuff and content. I watched the whole interview with Candace and Mitch Snow. And if you go to his stuff, it was obvious that he was full of shit. First of all, he's like getting imprisoned and beat up by his wife, but he's supposedly a black ops dude. And supposedly his wife smashed his thumbs with hammers. So it was so retarded. And his account was, I was at the military base and I happened to be there because the military owes me back pay. And I overheard in the skiff or whatever, which makes no sense because that's silent, you can't hear in a skiff or whatever. I overheard them talking about all these generals together with Erica. And Candace says, how sure are you that you saw Erica Kirk? And he's like, 95, 99%. Well, then that guy starts asking for money. And then that guy's like, oh, by the way, I'm the Zodiac killer's son. Like, just bullshit, dude. That's obviously a phony. Okay. Now, that was a huge fail on the part of Team Candace. And so then she shifts to a new conspiracy the next week. Then it turns into all this other stuff. I forget exactly in this timeline when she figured out that Charlie Kirk was a time traveler and that they knew he was going to affect the future because they have Aztec technology, secret Mayan Aztec technology, which allows them to manipulate the future. And she said, by the way, it turns out the 33 stuff, that was around the same time. It was back in March. So that was actually an old clip from like March, where she's literally saying that it's BB and the Disney 33 Club together because all the Masons are in on it because Kash Patel said 33 hours later, we had such and such happen. And the only reason Kash Patel would say that, as well as the cop, is 33 is a Masonic code. So it's like schizo gematria levels. None of this is evidence, you idiots. You think you could actually present 33 code Masonic Disney gibberish in a courtroom in a trial? No, of course not. And the fact that all these people have already discounted what all's in the trial already is preposterous because, okay, so wait a minute. If everything in the trial is fake and the FBI is basically controlling the trial and they're telling everybody what to do and the evidence is all fake or whatever, then there's no way for anybody to know. That how do you even know that any of it's real? It would all be potentially fake. Perhaps Harrison's email's fake. His text message, that's all fake. You see what I'm saying? It's like, I'm not saying it is. I'm saying Well, if all of it is fake in the trial, then how's any of the rest of it? But perhaps Charlie Kirk, it was CGI. I'm not saying that. I'm saying, like, do you see where that leads? It's like, then you can never prove anything. So why are you even arguing about it? Because you don't know anything either.
By the next day, she's trying to cover it up. She's part of the conspiracy too. When I went to the TPUSA HQ and I talked to Erica briefly while I was there, the first thing I did was what I think every normal, moral human being would ever do. I gave her a hug, and I told her how god-awful sorry I was that happened to her. Like, could you even imagine how that's got to feel for her? Especially now that she has tens of thousands of people accusing her of murdering and conspiring to murder and then cover up what happened to her own. I mean, that's...
Now, let's point out something here, because it reminds me, as we said this on a stream, if you remember back in the 2010, 11, 12, 13, 14 era, right, when I was writing a lot of articles with Patrick Henningsen, something Patrick pointed out, which back then when mainstream media had a lot more credibility, there was this recurring pattern of where anytime there was a big major event, a big TERROR type event, the establishment would immediately send all the feds in, they would close it down, national security, and then nobody actually knows what happened, because you would just have to listen to what the FBI said, right? Because it was all controlled. And then what happened was the immediate result on the part of the media was trial by media. Everyone wanted to, the media especially, wanted to have that power and ability to convict people merely by media fiat. Whoever the media said. Go back to 9/11, right? The media says bin Laden. We all know what says who. Well, we decided, the establishment says it was bin Laden, and you better accept it. Don't question anything. Fast forward to now that mainstream media has basically lost all of its authority, except for like brain bombed boomers who are, 70. Nobody listens to Fox and MSNBC but boomers. Okay, so who has authority? It's the influencers, right? Alt media has now taken over. Alt media is dominated by certain key influencer figures. And Candace is one of those biggest of those figures, right? So it makes no sense that, actually it makes perfect sense that trial by media is no longer trial by mainstream media. It's now trial by mob and whoever their favorite influencer is. And that's crazy. That's just as crazy and just as ridiculous as 16 years ago when it was trial by media, right? In my view.
That's like mind-boggling psychological torture on a level that I've never seen.
Yeah, and hindsight is 20/20, but given the reaction, I think it probably would have been better for her to like lay low for a little while.
1000%.
Yeah, I think Erica Kirk made some huge mistakes. Like the way she acted was bizarre. We have seen a lot of people in these events, these high profile events, they do have a tendency to act bizarre. That could suggest criminal involvement, but it also might not, right? Those types of things, in my estimation, aren't strong proofs. I will point out, though, that Tim Gordon, who has a law degree, and I think Tim is relevant here because Tim leans definitely more on the conspiracy side. And Tim made an interesting point, which is that many people in the normie sphere, and I don't know law shit. Everybody can ask Alex Horn if this is true. I assume it is because Tim has a JD. Tim pointed out that actually circumstantial evidence is admissible. So it really depends on the judge and the court and the trial, because in the normie sphere, we all think when we hear, oh, that's circumstantial evidence, that means, oh, that's immediately invalidated. And that's not true, according to Tim. So actually, for example, if you have several pieces of circumstantial evidence that point in a certain direction, turns out, according to Tim, the law Tim, law Tim Gordon, Tim Gordon's law Bob Law's law blog, turns out actually circumstantial evidence can be admitted in court and can count as evidence. So all of these pieces of data can actually potentially be relevant. But just because Erica Kirk acts odd or acts weird, which is bizarre, it doesn't necessarily prove either way, right? Just like Harrison's text message is a important piece of circumstantial evidence, and this is what Tim Gordon was saying, it doesn't necessarily prove it either way either, but it could be admissible. And I don't know if this is the case, but if there was some trial with Erica Kirk, conceivably odd actions could also be part of a prosecution's line of argumentation, right?
Going out with the sparklers was not a great idea. Like, all that was not a great idea because it just seemed insane.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was saying.
And maybe sometimes in grief, or when, you're trying to show that they're not going to hold us back, people make choices that could be interpreted in a very bad way.
100%. The interesting thing is I asked her about that. I asked her, like, what's the deal there?
What's with the sparklers?
Well, what's with the aberration in behavior? And
Right.
she's like, look, I was put in like the worst spot I could ever think of. I was the background character. I was just there to support my husband. That's it. The only reason I even really got involved is because Charlie was so pro-marriage, and he wanted to demonstrate to the world you can be married and have kids, and this is the good life. So when he dies, she takes over, right? This moves over to her control. She says, well, the first thing I want to do is honor his last book. That's the very first thing I want to do. I want to honor his legacy. And she's like, I don't know exactly how to take this position. At the same time, there's expectations for the organization my husband built that I want to honor, right? But, I'm also in the middle of grief. And it's like, I don't know how you balance that position. Who's been in that position ever?
Right. And especially who's been in that position that's not accustomed to being scrutinized in the public eye.
Everything. And it's the lack of charitability that's so bad too. Like, let me give you an example. If you say, Paul's so lazy, he never gets to work on time. You don't actually mean Paul has never once gotten to work on time. That's
Right.
not what people mean.
Right.
But the way that these people will scrutinize every detail of what a person does, they can make a liar out of anybody, because they'll take statements.
Yeah, that's an interesting point, and I know that because we see that happening here. People do that with anybody online, right? So, like, if I was doing a sketch on my channel years ago where I was dressed up as a metalhead with a wig, or another sketch where I was a Viking, right, where I'm playing like I'm a pagan LARPer dude, people take that and they say, "Look, he's a cross dresser." Like the expose video that has like 150,000 views exposing me from that stupid cult, the trailer park monastery cult. Like, they don't even tell you the context, right? Or me with Wicca phase, and we're standing next to like a B movie set of like vampire goth stuff, and the casket has an upside down cross on it, which is on there with it's like electrical tape, you idiots, right? This was an old goth club that had been converted into a venue for like underground, like hip hop and like alt rock bands, right? This was in Orlando, and there was a whole bunch of really silly stuff in the back of the venue, because like a big warehouse that was converted into a club, from a golf club to like not a golf club, right? So we thought that a lot of this set piece stuff that was sitting around, there was a giant airbrush snake, you can see in one of the pictures with me and Wicca phase. We just thought that was really funny, so we were taking all these pictures next to it. And then they took that to say that I was a secret Satanist because I was standing in front of a B movie casket. That would be like going to Warner Brothers, because if you go to LA, you can do like the Warner Brothers tour, and like, if you stand next to, I don't know, something from a horror movie, and then, look, he's a secret Satanist because he's standing next to Dracula's casket. Dude, that's a movie set, you idiot. So what I'm saying is, like, on the internet, people do this all the time. There was that joke. I made a joke like in 2008. It was a YouTube comment, and somebody said, because I was on a video and I'd had like 2 or 3 beers. That was back when I drank. And they were like, I don't know, dude, looks like you're really stoned in this video. And I was like, yeah, I had like 3 beers right before I did the video, so I was a little tipsy. And then they kept going back and forth, and I said, yes, it makes perfect sense that before I would read the church fathers, I would like totally get 20 blunts and chief out of my mind. So I'm full, and this was obviously sarcasm. And all of these people they still share this, like I'm saying that to read the church fathers, you have to get stoned out of your mind. It was like obvious sarcasm. So this is what the internet does, is the internet literally takes anything, scrutinizes everything, blows up nonsense, and made up nonsense even usually. So I can understand this because it happens all the time.
Like that, which in the common terms, if you say, oh man, Paul's never here on time. you don't literally mean he's never here on time. Nobody talks that way. But if you push on everything a person's ever said, tongue-in-cheek, not tongue-in-cheek, they misread.
Yeah, that's exactly what I'm saying about the comment that they still share about me from like 2008 on YouTube.
Remember an event, they don't misremember an event. You can make a liar out of anybody.
Right. Yeah.
And that sort of scrutiny from all that public trauma, and it was the most traumatic event Zoomers have ever gone through. The biggest, I mean, a public assassination like this, same thing with millennials.
It also exposed people's character that they were celebrating it.
Oh, yeah.
And they have to feel bad.
All right. Yeah. Well, so really interesting conversation so far. I do want to read some of these super chats because we got quite a few to get through here.